Hello everyone and welcome to Coffee with Ceri. Now, if you've not seen a Coffee with Ceri before, it's basically I choose a subject, one that's come across my path, caught my attention on social media, or come up in a conversation with friends or a life experience I've had that I just want to talk about and maybe just raise awareness of it, maybe plant a seed of a conversation you might have with someone, maybe if you're going out with someone with coffee, having a sit down chat, this may be a subject you raise, or maybe it's something important enough that you think you'd like to talk to your family about it, or you just want to muse over it yourself. Um, this month's subject is actually something that happened to me, and it sort of honed a point to me, which I think I've discussed this topic before, and it's technology. I'm sure I've discussed it before, but it became more realistic to me this time because it actually happened. So, a relative of mine was rushed into hospital a little while ago, and while they were in hospital here in Wales, it's probably in Britain as well, we have resident parking, and resident parking has moved online since COVID. So basically, you go online, you fill out a form, you buy a permit to park out in a number of streets around your area, just because if you can't park outside your house and you need to park somewhere. So I think you've got 3 or 4 streets around you can park in. And you can also purchase visitors permits, and you purchase a block of hours. And then if you have a visitor, you have to go online, put their car registration in, how many hours they're going to be here, so they don't get ticketed by the traffic wardens. And they're traffic wardens here in Cardiff, because I live in the Principality of Wales, capital. They're pretty hot. So anyway, so this was introduced, and last year, or actually within the last 12 months, there'd been a new requirement come in, but people weren't really notified of it. What would happen is you could set your parking permit, your residence ones, not your visitors ones, to auto renew, so you would never be caught out. However, what happened is in the last 12 months, what's been happening is it doesn't auto renew unless you send in a photocopy, or not a photograph, a photograph via the internet you send in of your car registration form, which we all have for our cars, which places that car registration link to your address. Now, the system doesn't actually notify you're going to need to do this, and when the system fails, it pretty much doesn't let you know either. Well, mine didn't, and my relatives didn't either. So luckily enough, this had happened to me a month before. And me being me, it's in my planner the day it actually auto renews. And I went online just to double check mine had, and it hadn't. So there I am. So I looked it up, found out what it was, took a photograph of my registration form, hit send, and then it was immediately authorized, and my car was safe, and there was nothing. I wouldn't get ticketed for another 12 months. My relative, being in hospital, her car permit was coming up for renewal, and I knew it was coming up for renewal, so I kept an eye on it, and I'd been telling her that actually you may need to send this documentation in, and she was like, oh, it's okay, I'll be notified. And I'm thinking, you're not going to be notified. She didn't get notified. So I happened to discover that her car was parked outside the house illegally. Basically, it didn't have a parking permit. Although she insisted that it did have a parking permit. And I happened to be reading in my front room, and I can see where their car is. And I noticed there's 2 traffic wardens out there trying to put a ticket on this car. So I dashed out into the street and I explained the situation. And they said, well, we understand this person is in hospital, but we can't do anything about it because the law states this car is now parked illegally. We need to issue a ticket. And I went, listen, if you can give me 5 minutes, I will get my iPad and I will book her car in as a visitor to my address, and therefore she'll be legally parked until I can get on and get hers sorted out. And they went, that's fine, go ahead and do that. And then they were going to be in the street for a few more minutes, said, come and show me proof that it's been done. So I did it, went in, did mine. So it's a bit of a long-winded story. Did it and went down and found one. There you go. And went, thank you, that's fine. So it was covered for 24 hours. I then went and got my relative's iPad to go in and sort this out because they were in hospital, they couldn't do it. And I thought, you know what, I'm sure I can do this because the iPad isn't going to know who I am. I know where her car registration form is. I can just photograph and send it in. So anyway, first stumbling block, I couldn't get into the iPad. She'd fingerprint ID'd everything that she'd bought and immediately just used a fingerprint. However, knowing my relative, creature of habit, she'll never use his two passwords. I'm not going to tell you who they are, and just in case, what the passwords are, just in case. Anyway, so I tried both, and neither worked. And I went, I wonder whether it was an uppercase or a lowercase letter at the front of one of them. And lo and behold, I got in. So I went, right, that's fine. I then opened up the app to do this, and it wouldn't let me process anything that was linked to a payment, e.g. her card, which was auto-renewed, because I hadn't done fingerprint. And then I went, okay, right. So I was stopped from doing anything. I was onto an iPad, but then I thought, right. So I called her up and said, listen, how can I do this? And she said, well, I don't know, can you bring my iPad in to me? I went, okay, well, visiting time is over. I'll be in first thing in the morning. So went in first thing in the morning with her iPad, and she put her finger on it, opened up lovely. And then I went into settings and disabled or deleted her fingerprint ID. I also did it on her phone as well, which I couldn't even get into settings with the fingerprint thing. I wasn't allowed to do that. So that was covered as well. Then what happened was she needed to process it, but it wouldn't let her process it without authorizing it through her banking app. It gets worse, through her banking app. Well, of course, she knows how to get onto her banking app, except she didn't. Fingerprint ID. So she couldn't get into her banking app because we just deleted the fingerprint. So I went, right, it was your fingerprint. Let's put your fingerprint back in so you can get into that. So, sorry, told you a long-winded story. So she put her finger on, and after several scans, it got her whole fingerprint back on again. She tapped it, her banking app opened, but then it wanted the answers to those significant questions, can't remember what they're called. There's 3 stages of clarification of who you are anyway. And they, in the past, that when you set it up, that they will have asked 3 questions and you should know those 3 answers. She was clueless, no idea how to do those, had completely forgotten all of those answers. So therefore she's locked out of her bank. How did we eventually get into it? We then had to call her bank from the hospital, which wasn't fun because signal inside a hospital is not great, and they ended up having to reset her online banking without a fingerprint to her to be able to go in there to authorize the payment to get her car sorted out. This took several hours, may I say. And it set me thinking. I was like, okay, say my relative was in a coma or passed away, how would I ever get in there? And it was only then looking at other forms of technology, like her phone had been fingerprint ID, her iPad had been fingerprint ID. I know with me, if I make a payment over a certain amount, or I make a payment through my online banking, my banking won't let it go through until I've gone on to my app. And there's this thing where I have to, I can't remember what it's called, face recognition, I think it's called, where I have to turn my iPad into portrait, and I have to fit my face into an oval, and I have to look at it without my glasses on, and then I have to give one blink, and then it recognizes me, and then it authorizes the payment. So I was thinking, and I don't know whether my relative actually had this on her phone or on her banking either, and I'm thinking, we are putting so many layers of security into stuff. What happens? Like, if someone dies, if they're in a coma, if they're in a car crash, they can't do any of this, and then their relatives can't do anything either. And I was talking to a couple of friends about this subject, and it turns out a friend of mine, she lives in Britain, but her parents live in the Netherlands. And several years ago, her father wanted to archive all of the family photographs. So what he did is he photographed and scanned all of the family photographs um, relating to his daughter here in the UK and put them online. I don't know where, don't ask me in the comments, I don't know. And he put it behind a wall of a password and a login. Then he promptly forgot the password, and then he passed away. Then my friend, who's here in Britain, has tried and tried and tried, and now she's lost all her family photographs because the company who actually holds them, or held them, because it's been several years now, would not let her access them because she wasn't the person who created the account. They couldn't reset the password because the email account that her father had had at the time basically died with him. When they closed everything down, it was closed. All of his stuff was lost with it. So basically, we're so security minded about having passwords and logins that how do we deal with that when that person is either incapable or not here? Well, how do we access that? I mean, I do know people who all of their family photographs or all of their holiday photographs are all on Facebook. When the person who's the administrator for Facebook is gone and that account is gone, you may not be able to access those things. And I know if you contacted Facebook or YouTube or whomever, you could potentially put your case forward and appeal it, but it's a long-winded process. Excuse me. It's a long-winded process, and depend on how long it is as to whether that account has a ticking clock on it, and that account, after being inactive for a certain amount of time, dies as well. So it kind of put me in a bit of a worry, actually, because I know that I don't use there's with Apple, there's like a thing that can capture your password securely, so you don't have to remember your passwords, which I think is just, isn't that just making the point that there's a password null and void? And also, we all think, oh, these big companies won't ever get hacked yet. I know I sound a bit like a conspiracy theorist here, but there's always the yet. I mean, more and more often I'm hearing like all of the airports have been closed down because someone's hacked the system. A really big grocery store chain I used to work for, their system was hacked, which was part of a HR, human resources, payment taxation software that supplied a lot of very big stores in Europe. That was hacked for a year. There was no way of tracing how much you were being paid, how much tax you were being taken. And there was no, you couldn't access it. And the company, we trusted the companies. I hope we trusted the companies, and eventually all got corrected. But it took nearly a year to put that back in place. And then they went back through all of the records that had been captured and corrected the payments to the staff that needed the payments corrected, and then had to rebuild it all with an extra layer of security in it. So a lot of people will use like the online thing where it saves your passwords and stuff like that, but it's okay going, oh, my password's safe, it's on my computer. What if you can't get into your computer, people? um, so I've always been incredibly security minded because I don't trust very easily. However, I have created for me, because at the last count I had 75 different logons with different passwords. I know that sounds a little excessive, but when you're running a business and you're interacting with other businesses and you have to have accounts and accountancies and all that lot, they do quickly build up. So I've got 75 different accounts. There is no way in heck I'm going to remember any of those passwords. Also, some software will not accept the password you give it. It has to be a certain combination of upper, lower, a symbol, a numeric. They get quite complex, some of these ones. They're not even something that you would guess at for obvious reasons. So I've got them all saved. So what I've done is they are saved on the cloud. They are saved in a document that is password protected by me. Then to get into the cloud, you need my ID and my password anyway. And then to get onto my iPad or my iPhone or my laptop, my MacBook, you then have to have my ID and my password to go onto there. So I feel that's reasonably secure. But if I was hit by a bus, went into a coma, passed away, and the executor of my will or my friends or the remaining people in my life wanted to access anything, nobody knows. Only I know what the first password and login are, the very first start of all of that. So what I have had to do is I have now, because I keep it all on the spreadsheet. It's me. Who wouldn't keep it on the spreadsheet? It's me. I keep it on the spreadsheet. So what I do is I have now printed that spreadsheet out and I have actually put it in an envelope and I've given it to someone who is a completely trusted family friend who I have known forever. And I've told them there is stuff in there that I don't want them to read until the day I pass away. So they don't know that in there is a list of all of my passwords and logins. They actually think it's things to do with my will and stuff like that. So they've securely kept it for me. Now, the likelihood of someone breaking into their house, finding that document, figuring out who it relates to, then they find my address, breaking into my address, and then breaking in and stealing my stuff is a lot less remote. So, as I said, I know I sound paranoid. I know I sound a bit like a conspiracy theorist, but how do you make your stuff secure enough and yet accessible enough if you're no longer here? Like nothing on mine is fingerprint ID. I know that for definite because I've always, when it first came, I went, okay, so say I'm at a party and I've had a bit too much to drink. Not likely, I don't drink that much. And I pass out. Someone can actually just lift my hand up, press it against my phone or my iPad. My fingerprint will still be blood warm. It will still open that. They have access to my email. They have access to everything that the fingerprint will let me get through to. And there are people in this world who will do that if you're at a party or if you're in a nightclub or something. So a total stranger could sort of take your phone out of your pocket, tap your finger on it and open it up. I don't think they could do the eye blinking thing, but then let's start that one again. AI, artificial intelligence, would have been easier than the abbreviation, is getting to the point that, and I don't know whether this is even possible, could I take a photograph of someone's face, and I know there is software that can take an image and make it move. Like I've seen the Mona Lisa talking, where things like that, and I've seen the Mona Lisa give a wink and things like that. So I know there is software that can take a still picture and make it a moving picture. Is technology now at the point where someone could take a portrait shape of my face, make my eyes blink and hold that up to my iPad to access my bank account? Again, maybe I'm getting a bit too deep into this. Maybe I'm being a bit conspiracy theorist on a big scale here. But it's the sort of things that my anxiety drop into my brain. They're the sort of things that I mull over and go, how would I do it if I wanted to access something? So it's a thought, guys. It's just a thought. How secure is what we want things to be secure? Is it too secure for those we love to actually access things when we're no longer here? I don't know. I sometimes think we're getting a little too clever for our own boots. We're relying so much on technology now, but technology is not human. Technology doesn't care. Technology understands yes and no. You can't reason with technology. No matter how much you shout at your iPad, no matter what you throw at it, it's not going to let you in. Basically, the answer is no. So just an interesting thought, just a little one from me this time. Oh God, 20 minutes, that's not a little one, is it? But anyway, just worth thinking about. I mean, if you are in a relationship, or well, a relationship on any level, and you totally trust your partner, which you should, do they have access? Do they know what to do when you are not capable of doing it anymore? As I said, interesting. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. That was I just wanted to pop on and talk about that because it really did pop into my mind, and I was like, I don't really understand how you can be secure, but then not so secure that those who need to be in there can get in there. Uh, I'm sure the people who own the software and the big companies would always be able to access it, but how many hoops will you have to jump through? How long will it take? How much paperwork is there going to be? A legal process to let you access something? It's a weird world, people. It's a weird world. Okay, that's the end of this Coffee with Ceri. Thanks for listening to me, guys, and I will see you next month with a different topic. Bye bye now.